Hey everyone, welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience live. Byron Nelson chat. Get your questions right now into the YouTube chat feature, and I will start firing away at them. If you're new to this, you just want to jump ahead to when the chat starts, check out the index. You can have a hyperlink right to it for the time code of when it starts. I do want to let everyone know about all the fine work I've done this week, and it's not so much fine on my end, it's fine from my guest end. Feinberg on Monday, Ulrich on Tuesday. The picks cheat sheet is currently up right now with my one and dones on my Facebook page, facebook.com/thepme. The DK cheat sheet and the field and course preview are both up on dkplaybook.com. Want to remind everyone to give the episode a like. It does not take a long time. And if you're listening, or if you're not, and if you're watching this on YouTube and you're not listening to the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, The Pat Mayo Experience. Rate, review, download. I don't care if you listen, just do those other things. It goes a long way to help keep everything free so I can sit here on a Wednesday afternoon and chat with you. Finally, fantasynational.com. If you get the monthly membership right now, that will take you through the US Open, so you might want to get acclimated to the system. A lot of great tools, great features, and the brand new mixed condition model, which is top notch, if I do say so myself. All right, let's get to this.
Entering the Pat Mayo Experience.
Pat Mayo Experience. Pat Mayo Experience. Pat Mayo Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience live. Byron Nelson Q&A for the viewer. So start loading up your questions into the YouTube chat right now. Reid Fowler will be joining me momentarily. Actually, let's get to him right now. Reid Fowler, what's up, dude? I'm doing all right, man. You ready for the weak field Byron Nelson?
Oh, man, I'm super excited. Actually, the one thing that I'm actually really excited about, I got my notice to send in my application for the 2018 Masters ticket. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we get something there because it's a lottery, right? So that was the one shining moment for me. This is such a weak field.
Yeah, I'm in the draw as well. A couple of my buddies are also in the draw. We're just hoping that one of us hits, that maybe one of us can go. We got to get DraftKings on getting us just like accreditation. Yes. Not that that will ever happen. Not because of DraftKings, because of the Masters. But it would still be nice. We can shoot a show from the Hooters across the street with John Daly.
Exactly. Perfect. Well, what could go wrong?
All right, so before we get into all of your questions, keep loading them up. Remember, give the episode a like. It goes a long way to help keep the show free. Or if you're listening to the audio podcast on demand after the fact, please rate, review, subscribe. Although I suppose if you're listening to it on the audio podcast, you probably already are subscribed, but you haven't not rated yet, please go do that. And fantasynational.com, if you get the monthly membership today, it brings you all the way through the US Open. So now's a great time to jump on that monthly deal. It's a solid price. And it gives you time to get acclimated with how to use all the tools that have really helped me so far in 2018, and I know they've been helping a lot of people. So over the past month, since the Masters at least, I mean, the Drew won the Millionaire Maker, so we're over $1 million in total net winnings. I won $20K, Gup won $20K, so people are doing well out there using Fantasy National, so go get on board, see what it's all about. The monthly membership, like I mentioned, brings you through the US Open. Let's get right into it. The cheat sheet's up for both DK and the picks, so you can go follow along with that if you want. Maybe there'll be some amendments after we talk this through. Maybe people bring up stuff that I just have not noticed yet. But first question from the chat goes to, hey Pat, is Ricky Barnes a good dart as any? Thank you, Sean, for that very clearly worded question. I took a shot on him as first round leader. That's basically all I can get behind with Ricky Barnes and his stupid hat. But Reid, are you looking at Ricky Barnes at all? Because he did, I wouldn't say pop for me, but he wasn't near the bottom of the field for me either.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can take a shot with Ricky Barnes. Obviously, a couple years ago, even last year, he popped in some cases. But in terms of long term, I'm not looking at him. There's some guys in that price range I'm looking at. But for me, I'm going to be off on Ricky.
All right, next question goes to Britt. Haven't heard you mention Aaron Wise too much. Am I an idiot? Or he's WD? Or are you just fading this week? I'm just fading this week. I just think he's overpriced. And if I'm going to take a shot on an overpriced guy, I'd rather go up the list. Like, there seems to be a lot of chalk concentrating in that $9,000 level. Like Scott, Leishman, Grayson, Walker are all going to be hilariously owned, probably like 17 to 23% each. We know Spieth is probably going to be like borderline 30. So if I'm going to make a stand, instead of going down off Leishman and Grace and Walker and going to Wise or Hostler or that area and like the young up-and-comer guy, maybe I'm wrong on this, I'd rather go up and take a shot with like Billy Ho or Hideki or Sergio, that kind of thing, just a higher quality of player. Maybe Billy Ho doesn't necessarily need to be in that mix, but it just seems strange where he's so overvalued. I know no one's going to own him, so I divvied up some shares. I actually ended up using 0 Adam Scott, which terrifies me because I use Adam Scott every week, but it's not usually chalk Adam Scott I'm using. It's a Adam Scott sucks Scott I'm using. So this time I'm just going to go with Billy Horschel because no one wants to use him. What are you thinking about Aaron Wise? Because he looked pretty damn good at Quail Hollow.
And I think that's why, right? We see sort of name value right now. Aaron Wise has played well currently, but in terms of this type of tournament, there's two schools of thought, right? You can take these shots like an Aaron Wise because this is such a weak field, a guy like Wise who can bomb it off the tee and really gain strokes that way. You can see him performing well here because of his current form. I actually like a guy right below him at 8,700, Charles Howell. I think my approach to this is I want guys who have experience in these types of courses. And a guy like Aaron Wise, although he has all the talent, I like a guy like Charles Howell, 8,700, even going down there at the low 8s, Grayson Murray, J.B. Holmes. I'm taking shots at those guys as opposed to Aaron Wise just because this type of course where he's at right now, although he's playing well, I'm going to be off on Wise.
So Wise right now, I'm just looking at the ownership projections, and after they load, they'll come in. I know Charles Howell III, and I have these updated in my DK cheat sheet up on DK Playbook. Pivot plays and projected high-owned guys. Charles Howell III does look like he's going to come in with substantial ownership, and Wise will be around 5 to 8% less. So, I mean, I'm not using either of them, so what's it really to me? But I think if I had to choose between the two, I would just take the ownership discount with Wise. But I hear what you're saying about get some experience with Charles Howell III. He's seen so many different types of courses that he's going to adjust easier. The guy that I'm using from there, I'm using a little bit of Sneds because I just can't help myself. And he's going to be super low owned. Then I'm also using Rory Sabatini, who probably is going to garner more ownership than Aaron Wise, but like the guy has just been super consistent all year long.
Yeah, and this is a year, right, where we've seen guys who maybe haven't won in a long time or just haven't won break out and win this year. So Rory Sabatini, we talked about it last week, right? This guy plays well in strong fields, and now look at his price. It's really coming in at a spot where his current form is matching his price performance. So I wouldn't be off on that Rory club because, yeah, he's playing really well. I won't be using him specifically. I'd rather go down, like I said, and take a stance somewhere. And so I'm going to be fading Rory. And hopefully that doesn't bite me.
Well, I mean, last week we were getting him at like 6,700. Now we get him at 68 or 8,600. So there's not a whole lot of value with him. He's been such a good cut maker all season long, and even like in terms of the ball striking stats around the green, like he tends to play better the first 2 rounds, which at least gets him through the cut. And in a week like this, like 156 players, half them are just god-awful. Like, you need to have a modicum of safety somewhere. And strangely enough, I think that might rest with Rory Sabatini. Next question comes from Eric. Is it fair to say the high-price guys generally don't return value? Don't they usually need to get 100 when priced around 12K? You can think about this 2 ways. One, you're getting a certain level of safety with the higher end players. It doesn't always work out that way, but if you're aiming for a 6-6 to get through the cut, that's going to cash. But if you need to win the tournament, you're going to need the winner on your team. And generally speaking, I know it doesn't happen every single week, but when we talk about like win equity, these higher price guys just have so much more of it than everyone else. It's the same sort of rationale. Like Josh ADHD played a lot of lineups last week where he left like 3,000 on the table and only used the 7K guys. And well, if you had Webb Simpson, there was a way to arrange it. But even if you look at the top of the players, you're still going to find some high price guys. So just discounting them right off the hop is kind of crazy. Now, if you're doing that in favor of a balanced lineup where it's like 3 9K guys and 3 upper 7K guys, I understand that. I actually have a whole bunch of lineups that kind of mimic that sort of outline. Like you mentioned Grayson. I really like Grayson this week. I'm using a lot of Neiman. I'm using a bit of Martin Laird, although he might end up being super chalky here. Keith Mitchell, like those sorts of guys, along with my Graces, my Walkers, my Leishmans, Snedeker. I am using some Sergio. So that sort of mix. But I know Spieth's going to probably be like 30% owned, but I heard Colin Drew talking about this on the Daily Roto podcast, the Going for the Green. Great one to listen to every single week. Very analytical in terms of tournament selection and building your core and the probabilities of a lot of guys. But they said if you built your optimal 6 of 6 lineup this week with Jordan Spieth, the probability of actually getting 6 guys through the cut would be around 14%. If you started in like the 9K range, it would only go up to 16%. So if you do think that Jordan Spieth can win, you're going to need to have the winner on your team regardless if you're going to win this tournament, unless some absolute loser wins. But in a field like this, you get so much safety with the guys. It's hard for them to pay off value, but at the same time, it's also hard for $7,200, let me come up with a name here, Greg Chalmers to return value as well because he sucks.
Right, exactly. And that's what you're giving up, right? You don't want to talk yourself out of a guy like Spieth, right? And there's a narrative, and you talked about it earlier this week, that he's got so many obligations. We kind of see this with Sergio, right, at Augusta. That's a little bit higher in terms of what you're seeing, the type of stuff that he has to do. But Spieth coming back, right, to his hometown, this course, this is the first one. That whole narrative is there, where you can either fade the guy to say, like, he's completely distracted, or you play this guy because some home cooking might serve him well. He might start making some 5 and 10 foot putts. But what you're saying, right, at this price is you're getting an amount of certainty, whether it be 14 to 16% of that 6 of 6 lineup. You're getting that, that modicum of confidence, where a guy like Spieth on this course, where he practices, where his coach, has his teachings out of here. You can see why Spieth will be 30% owned. Me personally, I'm boxing out that top, because I want to make a stand somewhere. So I'm boxing out that top, and I'm starting all of my lineups essentially in that 9K range. But again, I'm giving up that win equity because Spieth, Sergio, Kuchar, these guys have the probability to do well, and that's why they're up there.
Betting Bartender says, hi, Pat and Reed. Thanks again for doing the live show. Always love it. Thank you for always tuning in, Betting Bartender. We really appreciate it. And if you're like the Betting Bartender, because I know he's already done this, give the episode a like. Thank you. Just scroll down, just hit the button. It's not too tough. With how GoPokes187 asked, with how weak the bottom is, are you putting some of the top guys in more than 40% of your lineups? Well, I can tell you that right now as I scroll over to my lineup percentage and put in unique lineups and see how many guys over 40% I have. 1, 2, 3. 3 guys over 40% and like 4 guys at 35%. I actually really concentrated my core this week because of how, and at the bottom I have a lot of like 5% guys, 10% guys, just mixing and matching with all the guys I really like at the top. Now watch Leishman and Grace go out and miss the cut and I'll look like an idiot and lose all my money, but that's the way, after last week where I didn't go the only player that I went above 35% on last week was John Rahm, which was aces until Saturday. Then it just turned out that it was a horrible week. This week, I think that where there is such a limited field that you do want to concentrate your core, at least with the guy. You have to make some tough choices, though. Like, I would love to play Adam Scott this week. I would love to play Matt Kuchar. I think Matt Kuchar's super safe, but I would just rather take the win equity of Jordan Spieth over him, even though he is a bit more expensive. So, yeah, I think that's a very smart strategy, at least in my opinion. Take the guys at the top, really concentrate, and maybe pick, like, from the bottom end, the only guy that I'm really, like, overweight on is Kevin Na, because you have to be, because he's going to be somewhat popular if you want to go with him. Either full fade or play double the field. I think that's the method you want to use with Kevin Na here. What are you doing with your lineups?
Yeah, same with me. I'm concentrating. I think the 2 guys that I have over that 30 to 40% threshold is Hideki. I just think at this type of field, a guy like Hideki, to me, stats out really nicely. His price obviously allows me to do a little bit more. I can stack a couple guys in that 9K range. So for me, it's going to be Leishman and Hideki that are going to garner that ownership. And same with you with Kevin Na, right? At this price, at 7,200, he's coming out, statting out so nicely, especially around the green and scrambling. I think he's number 1 over the last 24 rounds in terms of his short game. So Kevin Na, 7,200, you got to be overweight because you're saying, like you said, he's probably going to be 25, right? 20 to 25%.
I don't know if he gets up that high. Kevin Na has burned so many people that some people just won't play him. At least that's my thinking on it. I could be wrong.
Well, in terms of your lineup, right, you probably have to be around there. If you're making 20, probably 4 lineups is going to garner a Kevin Na in your lineup. So those are the places that I want to be overweight on. And again, this is the type of tournament where you can take some luxuries or take some liberties in terms of picking guys like Aaron Wise, right? Picking guys, for me, Aaron Baddeley is another one that I want to take a off-the-wall type play with because of some of the different stats that I'm looking at. So those are the guys that I'll be overweight on, and I think it's a good strategy.
Yeah, I have some Aaron Baddeley too, because the next question actually kind of concerns Aaron Baddeley. It is from Ponderosa Sports. Thoughts on the all-Aussie lineup? So far I got Leishman, Baddeley, Matt Jones, put him in there at 7,600. Who else is in here? Super Nintendo Chalmers is somewhere down this list.
Stuart Appleby is in here.
Oh my God. Ogilvy and Appleby? Is that? Oh, now we got some hard choices because I didn't use Bowditch and I didn't use Robert Allenby.
Oh, and Allenby. Wow.
Yeah, Robert Allenby. Yeah, so I'd rather have Stuart Appleby than Robert Allenby. I'm not using any of these guys to be. I'm using Badley and I'm using Leishman. But yeah, you could create. I mean, there's $5,300 on the table with this specific lineup. I wish there was the high. I wish I Cam's. Why isn't Cam Smith here? Doesn't this seem like the perfect Cam Smith course? You hit some longer irons, be great around the greens, and know how to navigate the wind. Boom, Cam Smith.
Yeah, these guys aren't playing this type of tournament. This is a weak field. This is a first time at this tournament. Some guys are there, right, trying to get more FedEx points and all of these things. And again, this feels like one of the lower tier. And I think Ulrich talked about it yesterday. This feels like a web.com tour, or tournament. So you can take some shots, but don't get too cute with all Aussie because no.
David Tyree's brother, Kyle, asks, I'm trying to figure out if I should play Kevin Na or Kevin Tway. Tway is pretty good in Texas courses. Thoughts? I'm using both of them. From that low $7,000 range, they're kind of the guys that I'm rolling with as they're not the 2 of 20 lineups. They're more of the 4 or 5 of 20 lineups guys that I feel a bit better about. I mean, you can never say these things with both these Kevins. For me, if you're only going to play limited lineups and you're not sold on Kevin Na, taking Kevin Tway over him, knowing that he's going to come in at half or a third of the ownership, is probably the way to go. Do you have a preference between these two guys?
I'm going to go Na, just because I feel he's a little more, I would say this with a grain of salt, a little more consistent in terms of he's around the green game. Kevin Na is never consistent. It pains me to say that, but with Tway, right, you kind of want him on these bigger tracks. For me personally, he stats out nicely though. I mean, he stats out I think 18th in my model in terms of strokes gained on my custom model of the last 24. Guys down there though, I'm taking shots on Johnny Question Marks, a Pat Mayo favorite, as well as Connors. And so there's some other guys that I want to look in this low 7K range that I have a little more trust in as opposed to Kevin Tway. Although he's an extreme ball striker off the tee, so he can gain you strokes here. But that's the thing, right? We don't know yet how this tournament and how this course is going to play. So for me, I'm going with more of those guys, ball strikers, approach and around the green, for me specifically.
Charles Goldman asks, using a few different players, 50 to 60% of lineups, do you recommend diversifying in this field or just drilling those and hoping they all hit? I think that's really a personal preference. Now, if you're right this week, and these 50 to 60% guys all finish well, you're going to win a ton of money. However, if one of them busts, it can destroy a lot of your lineup. So it all depends on your risk tolerance. Honestly, that's always the way it goes. Some people love, I remember when, what the hell was his name? He was Max Daltrey, Sal. Yeah, anyway, he was playing guys at 97% clips and just either going all in or all out. But when he won big. And when he lost big. So that's what you're getting yourself into if you're playing that kind. Listen, if you're trying to max cash, absolutely go for it. I don't generally play that way. I like to mix it around a little bit, but I do think this is a week where you can concentrate. Next one, Jeff, 22. Pat, first 2 days, you've said very little about, oh God, it just got jumped on me. Yeah, stupid chat. There we are. No, that's not it either. Pat, first 2 days you said very little about Ryan Almail, Vaughn Taylor, Spawn as guys. Same with Piercy from the mid. All are absolutely crushing it in strokes gained approach / proximity numbers. Any reason at all? I'm using Spawn. I bet Spawn and I put him in the cheat sheet. So I do like JJ Spawn here because the approach numbers are coming back into form following the injury. Ryan Armour has been god-awful with his irons for a month and a half now. He was, if you're looking at only season-long stats, a lot of those numbers are from October when he won an event. He has not been good recently. That's why he's off my list. Vaughn Taylor, I just have no real thoughts on. There's only so many guys you can use, and you can't have an opinion on all 156 guys in the field. I used some Vaughn Taylor at Quail, I think it was. He's always, he's sort of like the minor league version of Luke List. No matter which sort of model that you run, Vaughn Taylor's always going to do a little bit better in it. And listen, he's won on tour before. He's a fine player. I just had no specific thoughts on him. Do you like him?
No, and here's another guy that I keep on playing for God knows what reason, Scott Piercy. At this point, I have to be all in until he does well because I've been playing him.
Hey, he did win. We just couldn't play DraftKings that week.
Exactly. He's great, right? He stats out nicely, ball striking around the green tee to green, ball striking tee to green, but he is god awful around the greens, god awful in scrambling, not playing well in terms of greens regulation. So you have to get him on a good week where he's striking his irons and he's getting it on the green. So I'll be playing a little bit of Scott Piercy just because I've been in on him at a higher price. Now I'm getting him at 8,400, or excuse me, 8,400.
8,400, yeah.
8,400, yeah. So I've been playing him at a myriad of different price ranges. So I'm going to be on Scott Piercy, but Vaughn Taylor, you're right. I can never really get a good read on Vaughn Taylor. He always stats out nicely, but I'm not going to be on him this week.
So if we dig into Vaughn Taylor just a little bit to see what he's been up to week to week to week, very poor around the greens, very poor off the tee. He's been putting well recently. He's gained strokes putting in 3 consecutive events. That even included missing the cut at the Players the week before. Played well in Texas at Valero, came T16, so that's always nice. T42 at Wells Fargo. I have no problems with him. He's just not for me. Piercy, I just think he's going to be popular, so I'm going to fade him. I'm actually quite interested if he can get... I don't know if the Zurich gets you into the U.S. Open, because I know he finished at Oakmont. He was inside the top 5 when he went on that nice run of majors. I'm very curious to see how he plays this week, because he's coming off 2 consecutive missed cuts, if we're not including the Zurich Classic, but he's just been so brutal on the greens. He hasn't gained strokes putting since the Career Builder. And he gained marginal strokes that week. But that's all it takes for him. He came 6th that week, and he gained 0.3 strokes putting. Everything else has been in the negatives. So I think that if he plays well this week, I'm going to give him a hard look for the U.S. Open, because I know American-style links isn't like links courses, but I think this might set up and give you sort of a blueprint of how certain guys are going to play, especially off the tee. Like, these are huge, huge fairways, and we're not going to Erin Hills, so maybe that part won't factor in as much, but guys around the green, guys making these 10-foot putts, scrambling to give themselves, that's not the strongest part of Piercy's game, but when he gets it going, it doesn't matter because he's such a good ball striker. I have nothing against Piercy this week. In fact, in my long-term model, last 50 rounds, he actually rates 5th. I should be using him. I'm just not.
I shouldn't be using him because how many times he's burned me.
You should be. Listen, by the stats, people should be using Scott Piercy this week. Instead, I'm being a moron and using J.B. Holmes and Grayson Murray. Next one. Let's see. Pat, what are your thoughts on DFS as it relates to sports betting ban rollback? I'll have more on that in the future once I know more information about it. As I'm not American, I don't even know how this relates state to state, what it means for anything, so just pass on that one for me. Just move to Canada, bet all you want. White Moses, Canadian lumberjack match, loser gets chained to a tree overnight. Lowest team to score par wins. Oh my God, man, like make these questions fucking easier. Either Team Spieth Wawrinski or Walker Hostler. Well, I'm not playing any Hostler, so Spieth Wawrinski for me. What about you?
Yeah, same with me. Get that win equity with Spieth.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Team Walker. I'm not using Hostler. If you could put like Grace in there, now we're talking about it. Jordan Spieth or Mark Leishman as a one and done. It's Jordan's course, and he's due for a win. That's not a real thing. But Aussies love the wind and don't know how highly owned they will be. I would expect Leishman to be one of the top 3 highest owned selections in any one and done, only because most people have used Spieth already. So they won't be doing it here. If you use Spieth this week, I doubt he'll be in the top 5 of ownership.
Yeah, exactly. For me personally, I like Leishman, but you probably saw Spieth at Augusta if that was in the same round. So for me, that would be Leishman between the 2.
Who is your best example of an insta-fade that you vowed never to play again until he started popping recently? Mine is Billy Horseshit. But I'm starting to change my tone. I actually don't have those guys in golf. That's more of a football thing for me. In golf, it's just so random that if you want to catch some fire, catch some fire. I have no one on my do not play list for golf.
Yeah, same with me. I mean, this is such a game of variance. I mean, Mark Ingram, right, is the guy that you'll never play, never rank. But you can't box these guys out. You have to look at it, both in a quantitative and qualitative process. You can't just say emotionally, I'm going to box out this guy because he, you're not going to box out Spieth because he 4-putted from 5 feet away and cost you some money. So, don't do that.
Let's see. Hey, Pat, thanks for the info. Thank you for watching. Give the episode a like. Rumor has it Hunter Mahan has moved to the course vicinity. Hunt's a bad part of Dallas. He's hurting for the cash. And has been playing it regularly for the past couple of months. Can he top 10? Sure, he can top 10. I'm not using Hunter Mahan. I'm not buying into that narrative. Are you?
No.
I'd rather use better players.
Right, exactly. Take this with a grain of salt. Spieth said it as well in some of his interviews, is that, yes, he's played here. Yes, this is his home course, but it's going to set up so differently as a tournament as opposed to a practice round, right? they're either driving in carts, whatever they're doing, their guard is down a little bit in terms of when they play here. So I would take that with a grain of salt. Don't try and work yourself into playing Hunter Mahan, because right now he's been playing like garbage. So yes, he could top 10 any of these guys down here. I'd rather go with guys that are either coming with great current form, good current form, as opposed to a narrative that may or may not work out.
Dane asks, how important is driving accuracy this week? Also, long rough, long of trees, etc. I don't know what long of trees means exactly. The fairways are 100 yards wide, so driving accuracy probably won't play much into it, although it doesn't seem to favor the longer hitters because of this new grass, the Trinity Zoya. Stuff just rolls on it for days. There's no rough. There is fescue at some points, but just going off the fairway isn't going to kill you. It's just fairway then fescue. And like I mentioned, everything's so wide and running so fast that maybe if you have your bombers, they might hit it through the fairway into it. And there's no trees on the course to speak of, so don't need to worry about that whatsoever. You can check out my full course preview on dkplaybook.com. I kind of break it down a little bit more there. Ashley, is Jimmy Walker justifiably priced this week? On another note, how do you view him as a bet for the U.S. Open? He hasn't been driving the ball well, and that's been the one thing holding him back, and that doesn't really seem to be that big of a factor this week. So I think he's justifiably priced at a Texas tournament, playing well. We know he has the long-term pedigree that he can win these events, and he's been just dominating on par fours recently. Plus, he's very good around the greens, very good putter. I like Jimmy Walker a lot. I thought he was a bit too short to bet, but DraftKings-wise, top-notch. U.S. Open, I'm not even sure what his odds are for the U.S. Open. I'm guessing they're like 80, 100 to 1. I mean, I can go look those up right now, but I'd have to see him rein in the driver a little bit, because if he's not hitting fairways, he's screwed at the U.S. Open.
Yeah, exactly. So the U.S. Open part of that question, you're absolutely right. He's got to rein it in. Off the tee, he's just been garbage over the last 24 rounds. But if you look at his birdie or better, it's great, right? That's what you want. There's some guys like Keith Mitchell, who comes in number 1 at birdie or better. These are the guys that you want, especially at DraftKings, especially in this tournament, because you want to score. And now this course, right, kind of going back to that previous question, look at some corollaries in terms of the course and how it plays out. But Jimmy Walker, I'm going to sort of contradict myself a little bit. He lives close, and that's why we see him pop in a lot of these Texas courses, because he plays well. He's used to the environment here. Now, again, grain of salt with that narrative, but Jimmy Walker stats out nicely. He's gaining strokes tee to green. A little, again, off the tee is garbage, but he's not a bad play here because, right, like we just talked about, fairways are wide. He doesn't necessarily have to keep it in the quote-unquote fairway. He can use his approaches to gain strokes. So I think he's priced well, and I think he's a good play here.
Jimmy Walker right now is 125 to 1 to win the U.S. Open. I actually don't mind those odds a lot compared to the guys that are around him. Like, I want to see Pat Perez get rolling a little bit. He's 140. I might like that a little bit better. Ryan Moore's been playing a lot better. I don't know if length. I really haven't dug into what Shinnecock's going to be set up like, so I don't really have any sort of takes other than the fact that I bet Rory in December. But that's about it. So once I dig in a little bit more, I'll have some more information. But at this point, it's just kind of blind guessing for me, and I don't want to get into that. 7,800 is the trickiest price for me. I see cons for Mitchell, volatile, low floor, absolutely. Palmer, kind of sucks, true. Neiman, unknown for the main 3 I'm considering. Help! I like Neiman the best, then I like Keith Mitchell, and then I would go Party Marty Laird of that little grouping. I'm not using any Ryan Palmer. Are you?
I am. I'm a sucker. I'm a sucker for a guy like Ryan Palmer who strikes his iron so well. Again, he's atrocious. He's like, I guess, I don't know who's the rich man and poor man in this situation, but he's kind of like Scott Piercy in that sense, right? If you get him around the green, if he doesn't hit these greens in regulation, he's complete garbage. So I would just switch Party Marty with Palmer in that ranking, because I think Keith Mitchell, and again, taking a shot on Neiman, again, we don't have a good sample size, right? He's only played a couple tournaments, but you can see the talent of this guy. This guy's hungry. At these ranges, right, at the lower 7K ranges, you want to get these guys that have a little extra oomph to what they're doing, and you want that narrative coming into it that, yes, they're playing well in current form, and B, if they play well here because they can with such a weak field, they're going to up their status in terms of the tour. So I like Neiman in this situation. Yes, you have to get – he's going to be 15% owned, so you're going to have to either match or go a little bit over. I don't think you have to, but I would just change Party Marty with Ryan Palmer there for me.
Next question. Seamus Power, this is from Andrew E. Sounds like he is a long-hitting professional wrestler. Does he have a chance to make some noise at $7,300 this week? Potentially. I'm not going to be using him. He's been putting the lights out. Made 3 of his past 4 cuts. He had a top 5 at the Coriolis in Dominican Republic. Did make the cut at the Wells Fargo. Made the cut at the Shell. So if he can continue getting the putter going, then there's no reason for him not to make the cut. But that's not something that I usually want to go with, is just banking on a guy who's just putting the lights out. Now, historically, he is a very good putter, so maybe he can keep this going. But he just didn't crack that list of guys I ended up going with down in that range. I went with Spawn. I went with Connors, like you mentioned. Bobby Garrigus, because I can't help myself. Putnam's down there. Tway, Kevin Na. There's only so many guys that you can play, and he just didn't crack it for me. Will you be using any Seamus Power?
No. So again, why I started essentially all my lineups in that 9K range is I want to use guys a little bit above that 72, so I'm going 7,400. Sam Saunders is a guy that, for me, when looking back at the Wells, he was atrocious, right, with approach and around the greens coming into before the Wells Fargo, was greatly priced. I think he was sub 7K, and he performed. I think he was top 10. So I'm going to be using some of him, Saunders, this week. Par 4 scoring is what I'm looking at as one of my key stats. And over time, right, if you look at the rolling report or the rolling stats on Fantasy National, he's getting better with every tournament, every week. So I'll be using some Sam Saunders, but no Seamus for me.
I'm actually using Sam Saunders as well. I totally forgot about him. He just kind of ended up cracking the core. So I'm on the same page with you. I think we're looking at the same things. Matt asked, due to the huge size of these greens, would you view proximity as a stat worth weighting heavily rather than greens in regulation? In addition, what wind tower are you using? I don't really use that many proximity stats. They can be very misleading, only because you don't know where these guys are hitting from a lot of the time. So the bombers are going to be hitting it from shorter, so then you have to dedicate that range, but I don't know how far these fairways are going to roll. So if you use overall proximity, I don't think that's a great stat. And I don't think the greens in regulation are all that great of a stat either. I get how those two would correlate, and you'd want to use proximity over greens in regulation. If I was going to use one, I would just use greens in regulation gained, a stat from Fantasy National, which greens in regulation, I mean, what if guys only play tournaments where you hit a lot of greens in regulation? That's just what happens. Like, certain courses are really easy to hit, certain courses are really tough to hit. If you play on a course with a lot of giant greens, you're going to hit a lot of greens in regulation. Big deal. If you weight it against gain, it then compares you to the field in hitting greens in regulation, which I think is more worthwhile. And for the wind tower, I am using the Mesquite Metro Airport on Wind Finder. I will actually throw that into the chat right now if I'm allowed. Sometimes they don't. Wind! Exclamation point. Boom. I just chucked it into the bottom of the chat there. That's the one that I'm using. Seeing some basically no wind. I might get up to 10 miles per hour on Thursday, so that's nothing. Everything's coming from the south on Friday and Saturday and Sunday as of right now. I was talking to Bodo a little bit about how the winds could affect it here. He said crosswinds are bad. Winds from the south shouldn't make that big of a deal. Although it do seem to heat up to around like 20 miles per hour potentially for the later wave on Friday. I'm not too concerned about it. I'm not actually going out of my way to stack any tee times. But I guess if you were, PM, AM would be the stack that I would look at. Have you stacked any teams?
No, even then, again, with wind, you want to take that stat with a grain of salt. The gusts are the things that we want to search for. Right? We want to potentially, quote unquote, try and predict, but how can you predict wind gusts? A, if we're not there, and B, we're not meteorologists, right? So don't read too much into that. Again, those crosswinds, yes, they are going to affect any golf shot. But like I said earlier, when we talk about this, these guys aren't going to hit when these winds are gusting. They're going to stop. They're going to wait. They're going to wait till the wind dies down a little bit. Now, if it's a sustained gust, that's a different thing. In terms of proximity in that question, what you have to do if you want to use it, right, you have to take those ranges, 150 to 175, 175 to 200, and then match them with the type of player. Zach Johnson is a guy that's going to be hitting more 175 to 200s than a guy like Dustin Johnson. I wouldn't use it as a core stat for me. It's more of the ancillary stuff that, like we've talked about before, where you put 0%, right, on the custom stat model, so it doesn't necessarily affect it, but you can still see it as a holistic approach to what you want to use. So that's just the one thing I would add with proximity, because that's a tough one because it's arbitrary and it's different with every player.
KDiz11, step 1, play Abraham Answer. Step 2, count your money. Well, it's nice to see there's someone on the internet with worse picks than me. Kyle asks, what do you think about Scott Piercy? Been popping. We talked about Scott Piercy like 15 minutes ago. Got to watch that one on the replay. Reid's using him. I'm not, but I said I probably should because he rates highly in my model too. Mike, hey Pat, do you think Andrew Putnam is going to be chalk? I think he's a good play, but I've been seeing him get talked up a lot. Then again, he's still, Andrew Putnam. Anything to worry about? Well, I can tell you in the betting markets that he opened at 125 to 1, and now he's down to 70 to 1. I'm only using 3 guys below $7,000 in two lineups, and Andrew Putnam I have in like 5 or 6. I like him this week a lot. He'll be chalk, but he'll be like $6,000 chalk, which means he might be like 8% owned. I have no problems using Andrew Putnam, and I'm waiting for him to break my heart. Are you?
Yeah, I'm going to be using Putnam. There's 2 other guys that I really like. Well, not really. I like in that 6K range. One is Bronson Burgoon. Again, he's a guy that not playing well current form, but I'm taking a shot down here just because of the betting. I think he's like 250 to 1. He might pop in this tournament, so I'm taking him. And the other guy is your boy Lanto, right? Lanto scores birdie.
Oh, yeah. Lanto makes birdies. That's all he does. He makes a ton of bogeys, but he makes birdies too.
Yeah, so those are the other guys that I just wanted to add to that sub 7K range. But again, you're taking a huge shot on these guys. Grain of salt. And if you're using them in lineups, right, the 8%, that's 2% or 2 lineups out of 20. That's not something that you want. You're not going to cry or spill milk on that. So that's fine with me.
For this tournament, would you rather spend money on someone like Spieth or Kuchar, or would you rather take a couple guys in the $9,000 area, like Leishman and Scott? Adam Scott was the one I didn't put on the All-Aussie team. Duh. Stupid.
Yeah.
How did I miss that one? It's tough to say. Like, if Spieth can run it, like, he's the biggest favorite of any golfer in any tournament this year. So I'm good with just not playing Kuchar. I would play Spieth. I guess if you're making one lineup, I would go with that balanced approach and use the $9,000 guys and just make my team overall a bit more solid.
Yeah, same here. I'm really peppering that 9K range. I want to stack a couple of those guys. Hideki is the one guy for me that's in most of my lineups, as well as Leishman. So it's just for me that when you get to this type of tournament, I'd rather err on that side where either these guys are elite players, these guys are experienced players, as opposed to paying way up and then having to play around in that low 7K range if you're choosing speed.
Martin Laird, an easy fade due to ownership. He'll be chalky, but not like uber chalky. I'm using a little bit, but listen, if you don't like Party Marty, don't use Party Marty. He just keeps, no matter what I look at, the name just keeps popping up. I'm like, I'm going to be such an idiot if I don't use him at like 3 of 20 lineups kind of thing, just to kind of cash in. Watch him be the one who blows it for me on a nice 6 of 6. But there's just the other guys in that range that I like better. Like I mentioned, Grayson I like the best, then Neiman, then Mitchell, then Laird after that.
Yeah. Again, this is something we talked about earlier. Palmer's the other one. But yeah, Party Marty is standing out nicely. So use them if you want to. Again, when you have these tiebreakers, again, you can use those stats, those ancillary stats for tiebreakers, ownerships, right? Those are the other things that we use as tiebreakers. But if you have a feeling about a player, use them, and because if he hits, right, good for you. But for me personally, I'm not going to be on Party Marty as much as a guy like Palmer.
Eric asks, 20 max entry GPP strategy. Take a stand and fade the top and play 9 and 8K guys, or sprinkle in 7 or 6K. I mean, if you're playing 20 lineups, you can kind of diversify that. I mean, if you want to fade all the top guys, it worked for me at Heritage, but that's not something that's going to occur every single week. I think it's a bold strategy if you kind of went all in on that and used none of the top 3 guys. But like I said, I'm using Spieth, I'm using some Sergio, so I can mix and match my lineups that way. If you're playing 20, even if you build 5 builds that are the Spieth lineups and then you build 15 the other way, I still think you're leveraged to the field.
Yeah, and with RBC, the only thing I would to amend to that is, we've had historical data on RBC. We knew how it played. We knew core stats. Obviously, you're going to save that custom stat model in Fantasy National because it won you the monies. But this course, for me, I'm taking a stand on my strategy and my approach. Will it work? Hopefully so. It might not, right, in terms of the key statistics. So that also apply that to your players as well. I'm making that stand on experience, elite, in terms of that balanced lineup, fading the top guys, and I want to see, right, what I can do in terms of those statistics. So this is a course that we still have yet to see what's going to pan out. We've heard some things from some players, and now piecing it together. But for me, I'm fading the top. I'm peppering that 9K range.
What strategy would Reid recommend this week? Well, he just kind of said it, and we addressed it right off the top. So, Jimmy, if you want to rewind to go back, it's on demand. You can go check that out. Caleb, CH3, low ownership. Years of guys can't win winning. We talked about CH3. Reid's on him. I'm off him, but I do not think that he's going to be low owned. I think he's going to be kind of chalky, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
People always use Charles Howell. Always.
Yeah. Especially in this week field. You're going to use CH3. So I'm okay with that. I'm going to match the field. So just because his ball striking is there in that price range. I don't trust Wise yet. I can see it. And a Geoff, the G-Train favorite, Peter Uihlein, not on him. So I like Charles Howell.
This channel gives me Tiger Wood. It's probably because, you have the handsome duo of Reid and I on here. So what does that say about you? You love attractive men. I like it.
There you go.
Next one. Could Pat, could this be a... Oh. Week. I don't think so. He's just not been playing well. Although someone sent me... I will say, I get some benefits of being the guy that talks about golf as people pass me along a lot of info. Someone sent me an email today regarding the caddy tournament that they held at this course last year. And he's like, hey, maybe it's some good insight. Maybe the caddies who were good here can translate that over to the players. And I actually think that's kind of a cool angle. James Hahn's caddy won the caddy tournament of all the guys in this field. So
that's all you need. Oh, look at Hahn. Ulrich brought up a good point. I think is something that I'm going to employ in this tournament is guys who missed the cut at the players. Now, again, grain of salt, right? The guys who missed the cut, the players didn't play well. But it takes so much. That course is extremely tough in terms of playing 4 rounds. Hahn, obviously he missed the cut, but if you saw when he won, right, the Wells Fargo, he missed 8 cuts in a row, and then this guy won. So Hahn is again a dart throw that I'm gonna play at that 76K range. Another guy I like right there is Bill Haas. So I like Hahn. I like him in this situation just because he doesn't really scare me with his missed cut. I like him at this price.
Next question concerns Noah Goodwin. David doesn't want to give away his flyer, but what are my thoughts? I really have no thoughts, to tell you the truth. Like once we just start just picking guys out of it, and listen, if you followed him through college, I believe he played at SMU. I think so that would technically make him a Texas guy. Maybe he has some familiarity with the course. I just don't know enough to pull the trigger on a guy I've barely heard of.
Yeah, me neither.
Even going back up a little bit, the same question about Hahn, talked about Kadira as well, but I don't know. I feel like I mentioned this to Ulrich. I've won my Kadira monies. I'm going to keep those in the bank, I think.
Yeah, you don't want to take that. I mean, that was such a beautiful. Don't ever play Kadira again. That was such a nice hit for you.
Well, I think if I'm going to play Kadira, and we saw it with Siwoo, and we saw it with Kadira at the top of the leaderboard, and we've seen this at some of these smaller courses that involve a lot of strategy and being precise off the tee have been really good to Asian golfers. Like it's a different style of game over on the Asian tour and the Japanese tour. And when they come over, courses like the Heritage and potentially Colonial, which is coming up next week, could be the spot to really kind of go back in on Kadira, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, and we talk about these guys, and you even look at with Hideki, right? These guys are precision players. They hammer balls in the range. They're really mechanical when it comes to a lot of what they do, and you see it with a bunch of Asian players. And so, yes, when you look at these guys who need to be precise with their irons, these are great courses for these guys because they are precise in that practice or in that regard. So, yeah, absolutely.
Should I be worried about Haas and Hahn's recent form? I mean, yes, but everyone in this field kind of sucks, so be worried about all their recent form. Or do you favor their long-term form in such a weak field? I would favor Haas's long-term form over Hahn's, only because Hahn is completely unpredictable, like you mentioned. At least Haas can churn out some quality strings of performances, and if we're going to compare the two, Haas, on a longer, broad range, is a much better player than James Hahn is.
Oh yeah, I mean you get win equity. That's what you want in these lower 7K ranges, especially in a tournament like this, right? That's why we like a guy like Haas in this range. And so win equity works at the top, right? When you want to make a case for playing these guys at the very top to return that investment, and even down here when you want value. So I'm looking at win equity. Bill Haas checks that box.
Kyle asked about Ben Crane. I know Ulrich liked Ben Crane a little bit. I can't pull the trigger on Ben Crane. He is playing better, if nothing else.
I just want to see him play with Rory Sabatini, so he yelled at him again.
I believe that it was Ben Crane who he yelled at, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that's awesome. Next one, Kevin Na questions. We kind of hit Kevin Na at the beginning. Eric asked, Kevin Na, way mispriced, worth 30%. LP asked, what's the deal with Kevin Na being so low? Is it a trap? Could be a trap. Again, I think if you're going to play Kevin Na, that you go way overweight or use none of them. And I'm going overweight because I'm willing to step into that trap.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. I mean, that price range. There's no one. He doesn't belong down there. Look at the guys around his price range. Absolutely not. Be overweight.
Eric asked, thoughts on the cut line? One over or more? I don't fucking know. No one's played this tournament before. Come on.
5 over. It's a guess.
Is there any correlation with early tee times in hot climates as opposed to playing in the middle of the day, especially in a week with less course info? Maybe something to use as a tiebreaker. I do not know. Do you have any idea with that?
I mean, me personally, I don't want to be hot, so I'd rather play.
See, I like being hot. The hotter it is, the better it is for me.
I sweat when it's cold outside, so for me, I'm not gonna. I'd rather play in the morning. That's just my personal preference. I'm sure these guys don't have a personal preference. Maybe some of the guys who are prima donnas rather play in the morning. I think Poulter is one of these guys who likes those morning tee times. But I mean, that's a tough thing to navigate through. Don't do that. I'd rather go with quantitative data in that sense.
I guess that if you're looking for people who would be used to these conditions, the Texas guys and the Aussies would be the ones who would play the most in this sort of heat on this type of course. That would be my guess. But I have no data, and I don't know where anyone would find that. If you do find it, please pass it along. I think it'd be very interesting. But I don't know anyone who's ever tried to do that sort of research. It'd be hard to find info on it too, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, what are you checking? Heat splits? Like, what's your keyword search there? I don't even know, like, the sweat splits. I don't even know how to search that. I mean,
just aggregating the tee times of the players and when they were actually on the course and corresponding that with the actual weather from that specific date and going back long enough to see if the sample was even useful. And then you could just turn out that it's a giant waste of time. That sort of research is not for me. This is why I did not pursue a master's degree or a PhD.
Right, exactly.
rather just bet on golf with limited information. David with Kevin Na, more Kevin Na stuff. What data or other course history correlate to conditions at Trinity Forest? I don't know. They're even saying it's not playing as long as the scorecard indicates, and we know that it runs a little bit longer, so it might actually play as like a shorter course, super wide fairways. The only comps I know, I said Royal Birkhead in the show yesterday. Royal Birkdale. Spieth says it sets up for. I see elements of Pinehurst in here. I see elements of Chambers Bay in here. It's almost like a nicer Chambers Bay. A better greens Chambers Bay is kind of what I look at for this, but it's really hard to know with not having seen it set up under professional conditions, the way that the greens are going to roll, just even putting infrastructure on the course like seating and stuff like that. Corporate tents could really kind of screw around with everything, or how does the wind affect it? We just don't know these elements. So that's why I kept the key stats of very rudimentary stuff this week. Ball striking. I actually added an approach back in even with ball striking because I want to weight that more. Around the green, I took putting completely out of the mix. Par 4 scoring. Birdies are better. Like that was like the most generic stats that you can look for is what I went for this week because I just don't know. And I think that anyone that tells you that they know, they're probably lying.
Yeah, I think the only person that I quote unquote trust are the architects. So Bill Core, who's one with Ben Crenshaw, who designed this course. He said it's probably going to play more like Pinehurst than it is like the quote unquote links that we're used to across the pond. So that's the only stat. And then obviously with Spieth saying same, right? You take that with a grain of salt, match it with those generic stats because that's what we want, right? We want these pure ball strikers. But if I'm going to use corollaries, it's going to be Pinehurst just to see how these guys finished. Again, it's a major, right? I'm looking back at a 2014 US Open. A major is completely different than this type of tournament. And so I'm using it just as a tiebreaker, trying to build a case around some players like the Badleys, some of these guys down in these ranges, the Graces, right, who play well in this style of course or around or these types of courses. So that's the only thing that I'm using because we don't have any historical data here.
And the big thing is, too, like, I think if this course completely bakes out, that you might be able to putt from off the greens. But right now, they're watering it down, trying to make it slower. Right now, you can't do that. At Pinehurst, you can do that. So there are just weird little things. I wouldn't try to weight one course or even look too hard at all the other ones, to be perfectly honest with you. Just go with the guys that you like, guys with the skill sets that are good, regardless of what you look at. However you weight good golfers, just take those guys.
Yeah.
Jose, what about JJ Spawn? We already talked about JJ Spawn. I mean, I don't know how many times I can write him in a cheat sheet to prove that I like him, but I like him. How have you guys weighting Link's course history as opposed to recent form? I'm not. Thoughts on Uline? I made a bet with Ulrich that Sabatini would beat Uline. I know Ulrich, the G train, as Ulrich referred to it. Feinberg and Ulrich both on Peter Uline this week. He's just been riding a hot putter. Like, give me a break. Maybe if you can get some consistency in your game, Pete, maybe I'll put you on the team. Not for me, though.
No, me neither. I'm in that boat with you. Rory Sabatini's playing a lot better. The putter, right? Like I said, we want, for me, I want ball strikers that potentially have trash putting stats that can, change it week over week, because that's one of the things that you can change pretty quickly. Well, not pretty quickly, but you can change in terms of your full game quicker than the other stuff. So, but putting, if it's saving you, right, and if it's not there, you're gone. So, not for me.
And I will say Lahiri projects to be one of the lowest owned of those 8K guys. So if you want to make like a game theory play on him that it comes through, go for it. Just not for me. Ashley Morrison, what's going on, buddy? Any love for Lahiri this week? I never have love for Lahiri. It was like the guy last week in the chat. It's like, Lahiri's free money. It's like, no, he's not. He's fucking Andrew Van Lahiri who just does. Listen, I'm using Lanto Griffin, so who am I to talk? But you talk about guys that trade birdies for bogeys. Lahiri's been in the business of trading a lot more bogeys for birdies recently. He is at his peak, very good par 4 score, and can get super hot. But he gets so cold so quickly that it's too terrifying for me.
Yeah, I mean, yes, if we keep on saying no, this is not a Lahiri week, and he comes top 25, then we're wrong, right? Or top 10. But no, I mean, a lock last week, no. Free money this week, no. I'm off on Lahiri.
Is it a fool's errand to chase scrubs with local course connections like Noah Goodwin and Will Zalatoris, or however the hell you probably... Listen, if you want to use these scrubs, use these scrubs. I'm not using them.
No.
One and done. Walker/Leishman or all in with Jordan Spieth. Listen, if you got Spieth, this is a good time to use him. $7.7 million in the prize pool, and everyone's basically already used him anyway, so you're getting him at low ownership. I can't use him because I've already used him at different. I used him, in TOC in one of them, and the Masters at another one. So most people are burnt out of him right now. Leishman and Walker will probably be. I already mentioned Leishman will be inside the top 3 of ownership. I would say that Walker will also be. It'll be a good week for Adam Scott in one and dones in terms of ownership, and Brendan Grace. Those 9K guys would be the guys that I would think. And people will use Bo Hostler, because where else are you going to use Bo Hostler?
Yeah.
Johnson Wagner, safer than Bill Haas? All caps, question mark. I don't think so.
No. Bill Haas all the way. I think this guy, again, win equity for me. It's just that's what I want in this price range. So Bill Haas is a play for me over here.
Thoughts on Brian Gay? I have none.
None.
Okay. We got to start rapid firing through these. We're almost an hour in, and there's still a ton of these. I haven't heard Abraham Answer's name on a single show anywhere this week. Just fucking marry Abraham Answer then. You can spend all day with him if you want. Could you build a good enough team at the bottom if you start Spieth Grace? Potentially. How much does that leave you with? Do you have that up right now?
Spieth is 11.9. Grace is.
No, I know what their prices are, but like if you're building,
that leaves you with 25 to play with. So you could you could make a decent lineup at the bottom.
Grace, yeah, 71, 75 per player. Yeah, you use Putnam, you use Na, you use Tway. Yeah, you could do it. I don't hate it.
Yeah, it's just that's a tough. Like for me, like I said, I'd rather hit the Hideki Leishman stack over that Spieth Grace stack. Just that's my personal preference.
David Duval as a punt play? Thoughts? No. Use him. Listen, you want to use David Duval, use David Duval. Maybe he'll shoot a 59 again. No. Hostler fade okay since Anderkirks, and Hostler only has 110 this year. I just think that he's overpriced. It has nothing to do with the Anderkirks. They're just quality guys right around him that I prefer to Bo Hostler. But maybe some people like Hostler, bit lower owned, not substantially lower owned than the rest of them. Texas guy, playing pretty well. I get the cases for him. I just like the other guys better.
Same with me. Like I said, that 8,900, that's or 9,000. That's too expensive for me for Hostler. Obviously, I'm going up a couple, and I'm going down in that low 8K range. So that's my strategy. So I'm going to be off on Hostler.
Kevin Q, hey Pat, love all your content. I love you, Kevin Q. Haven't heard a lot of GMAC talk this week. Thoughts? I'm usually out on GMAC unless they're playing directly on the ocean. He just wins at coastal courses.
Yeah. Same with me. I mean, he's a win player. You can make that case. There's no win. Link style, yes and no, but I'm going to be off on GMAC.
Joey Spada, how logical is it to do 3 or 4 man stacks in large percentage of lineups and then just throw darts at the lower price range in the weaker field this week? It's kind of what we were talking about and how we're building our lineups. I think instead of using like 3 or 4 man, I use more like 3 man stacks. But yeah, I like that strategy a lot.
Yep, same here.
Pat, any thoughts on Hideki? Flashes some form. Is he a U.S. Open play? Hideki's always on the board. His odds have actually dropped. Now Billy Horschel and Jimmy Walker now have shorter betting odds than Hideki does. It seems like he hasn't been right since he hurt his wrist, but I'll be using him in a very small fraction of lineups because, frankly, that's all you need this week. People are not using Hideki whatsoever, but just based on upside, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, 10% probably in lineups Hideki's coming in at. So I have him in like 25 to 30% of my lineups. I like his position. I like his price. He didn't play bad at the Players either. So I like where he's coming in. I think if what Spieth is saying too, where you got to drop these approach shots on the green, Hideki sets up nicely here. So I'm going to be overweight on Hideki.
Thomas asks, 72 to 7,400 guys, what are your thoughts and rankings on Connors, Spawn, and Tway? I would go Tway, Spawn, Connors.
I'll go Saunders, Tway.
No, Saunders wasn't on it. It was Spawn.
Oh, then Spawn, yeah.
Okay. If you had to play one lineup, would you play Spieth or go with a more balanced? This is what Joseph asked. We already said we would go with a balanced lineup this week if you're only playing one. Pivots from Sabatini. God, I never thought I would heard that said. And not only that not said, but said it when he's $8,600. Uline looks like he actually is a pretty good pivot. He's projected right now at 6%, while Sabatini's up at 16%. Aaron Wise, Snedeker's probably the best one. That you could go with. Maybe J.B. Holmes, he's projected for single digits as well. So that's sort of the range of guys. Like, I'm not using Uline. I am using Holmes. I am using Snedeker. So Snedeker for me as the pivot off of a chalky Rory Sabatini if you wanted to go that way.
Yeah, the two guys I would just add to that is Howell and Piercy for me. But yeah, it's interesting. A pivot off of Rory Sabatini in 2018. That's the things I would never guessed I would have heard. So yeah, that's what I would. Those are my pivots.
I typically play 100 lineups every week. How many players should be in my player pool? I usually have between 35 and 45. Too much? Too little? Honestly, I've never played 100 lineups in a single week, so I don't know. Ask Leone. I'll ask Leone and Raza next time they're on because they mass multi-enter, especially Raza. Raza plays like 150 a week every week and cleans up because he's awesome at this, but he would know better than I would.
Yeah, I mean, though that's for me. I'm in the same boat. I usually play the 20 max, and so no real insight into that. But again, if you feel confident, just, if you want to scale that out, feel confident in these, core guys and use them and then play your dart throws. And it seems to work for Leone, especially at the Masters when you want big bucks. But for me, I usually play that 20 max.
Yeah, I usually just play the 20, and I'll play 25 or 30 from week to week. That's usually the max that I'll push it. Cody Gribb, the Gribbler, had a great week at the Players. Could he have a good week considering he's a Texan? I would say he might have a better week because his ball striking was off the charts. Good top 10 bet maybe. I actually bet him to win at 400 to 1 or 300 to 1 with that top 5 each way. And I used him in 2 lineups. Yeah, so I don't mind Cody Gribble a little bit.
I'm actually looking at Sean Stephanie a little bit more than Cody Gribble. Again, obviously that the $100 savings. He's a guy that I'm looking at, and then also your boy Garrigus as well. So I'm going to be off on Gribble and more on those 7K guys. Strangely,
because the Fantasy National Simulator doesn't care what your name is. They just care at the length of hole that you play and how well you play it over different weights of time. The simulator loves Robert Garrigus this week.
Yeah,
that scares me. It's going to be so hot he might have to retire from golf because he'll just literally melt on the course.
Yeah, exactly.
No one loves a good swamp ass like Bobby G. Vaughn Taylor rates Howie for me. What do you think? We talked to him like 30 minutes ago. Why is Bronson Burgoon number 9 in my model? He is more like one of these model guys. And like, unlike List, he never plays well.
No, I mean, again, he has that Texas narrative. He grew up, went to school, I think, at A&M. So I like him as a dart throw, and that's it, right? Burgoon is someone that I played sparingly, and it hasn't necessarily panned out. So I'm going to take this dart throw. It's in Texas. I like that narrative as a ancillary stat. So the other ones that has, as a dart throw. That's it.
Can we start calling them like Bronson Burgoonies and just say, "Hey, you guys," every time he misses a cut, because that's what he does. K Diz 11. Hey Pat, I already got all the best plays. I'm a genius, so I just like it if you tell me to give your fucking head a shake, pal. I like this guy. He has great levity. Fun. We can jaw. Sergio Hideki. Good play this week. Tyler, you're way late to this. Just check the cheat sheet, man. One of these names is in the cheat sheet, one of them isn't. So one of them I clearly like more. It's Sergio. Do you think the incident with Lucas Glover's wife affects his game going forward? I don't know. What am I, a psychologist? Use one of your 4 Spieth starts in a league scored on earnings. Want to save him for majors and playoffs, but I'm tempted here. Sure, do it. Thoughts on Kevin Tway? Already talked about him a ton. All over CH3, talked about it a ton. Kevin Na, we talked about him a ton. I'm just trying to, there's a lot of questions here, and we got to get out of here in like the next 5 minutes. How about Johnny Question Marks? You like him, Reid?
I do like him. I do like Johnny Question Marks as a pivot play in that price range.
Sabatini Crane stack from Charles. Sabatini might kill Ben Crane, so you might get 0 points from one of them, or 2 of them, because Crane will be dead and Rory will be arrested.
Yeah. I mean, that stack alone just makes it's just Sabatini does not seem like a nice guy to play with. He probably is. This is all conjecture because we're just watching it, but no way. I'm not playing that stack. Walker,
Leishman, or Grace for one and done. Which player in the field do you think will be the most popular in one and done? Well, I think it's going to be one of those 3. I would go Grace between those 3 guys.
Leishman for me.
Okay. Who would you fade if forced between Leishman and Grace? I would fade Leishman first because I want to play Grace.
Yeah, vice versa. I'm fading Grace because I want to play Leishman.
Yeah, I'm playing them both. They're my 2 most highly owned guys, so it's a weird question. Snedeker and Aaron Wise. Very good pivot plays off Hostler and CH3. I prefer Snedeker, and Aaron Wise is carrying some ownership, just a little bit. So I would go with Snedeker first, then Wise.
Yeah, same with me. You're getting that like he shot what plus to 82, I think, at the Players his first round. But he came back and he shot a nice round. So don't be scared of Snedeker. Snedeker's been here before. He's experienced guy, right? If putting is if that stip is at 10.5 or whatever it's going to be, Snedeker can rattle off a lot of birdies. That's one of his favorite clubs in the bag. So Snedeker off that pivot as well. Yeah,
good link style player as well. Tremendous short game to go along with it so he can help himself recover a little bit. And there's no water for him to put it into the drink over and over and over like he did in the first round of the Players last week. And he had been playing well right before that too. So I'm going to feel like an idiot because I didn't bet him, and just he seems like a guy who could win. But Bill Haas was over double the odds. I was like, Bill Haas is, he could win. Bet him instead. Let's see. Having trouble predicting Sneds' ownership. It's from Scott. Scott and Tron were talking about this. I think he's going to be like 7% owned, 6% owned. That's me. But I'm playing more Rory Sabatini than I'm playing Brandt Snedeker. So I'm an idiot to begin with. And I guarantee you there's going to be idiots out there too. And even Charles Howell III will be way over-owned. Bo Hostler is going to be way over-owned. That's why we're seeing low numbers on Uline, low numbers on Snedeker, because double the amount of people are playing Aaron Wise. There's only so many people from that range you can play. And that $9,000 range tends to be super chalky, especially this week, with people playing a lot of balance. And I can just see him going under-owned. LP, any love for Patrick Rogers? Like I mentioned before, 5 more minutes for questions, so get them in right now and give a like. No love for Patrick Rogers for me. I did list him as a pivot play in my column, only because he's projected to be 1% owned, which is kind of crazy. I'm not doing it, but
yeah. 1% own on any of these guys, right? You could make a case, but I'm not going to be using Rogers either.
Let's see. Thoughts on Smiley this week? Come on, Greg. Like, you give your fucking head a shake, pal. I think he's a combined 78,000 over par this year.
Oh my God! Don't play Smiley.
No, you know what? You know what? Play Smiley. Play Smiley in the contest. Do it. See how that goes for you.
Yeah.
Geoff Ogilvy as a min-cost flyer, only because his comments in the course playing featured on the Trinity National website. There are worse plays you can make than Geoff Ogilvy. He's been playing like hot garbage, which coincidentally this course has built on. So maybe he has like a spirited kinship with it in that way. But yeah, he's been one of the pros that's been actively involved in promoting the golf course. He's played it a bunch of times. He has the Aussie angle, generally plays well in Texas. So I get it. I'm not doing it because I'm playing Brendan DeJong instead because I'm a loser. And it's just funny to me. But yeah, if you want to go with Ogilvy, he's like not the worst of these guys at the bottom.
No, I mean he won a U.S. Open, right? We're talking about win equity at the minimum.
Well, I mean Jack Nicklaus has won 18 majors. If he was in the field, you wouldn't be playing him, would you?
No, not at all. I'm not playing Geoff Ogilvy, but if you want to, right? Maybe he has all of his Aussie friends too. There, you know, it's a nice little party they have in Texas. But again, the guys that I'm playing down here, we talked about earlier in the show. I wouldn't be against it because of, right, it's a dart throw. It's a minimum price. So, yes, you can make a case, and he doesn't have to return a huge amount of value for you to be in the money. So, I'm not playing him, but I'm not against it.
Wise or Snedeker? Final question from Charles. Wise seems like a better scorer. I think that, yeah, he might be a better scorer, but he gained so many strokes off the tee, and if we're not going to emphasize that as much, Snedeker's just a better player. So, yeah, that's why he would be Snedeker for me.
Yeah, same here, Snedeker for me.
Axley. Oh, Lieutenant Ed Exley is my favorite min-salary play. And by that, I mean I have zero exposure. It gets into the point where you can just start naming any of these guys. You want to build a case for them, and like you feel anything with any of these lower-end guys, use them. That's what I'm doing with DeJong. I've noticed he's playing 7,000% better than he was a year ago, which still makes him a scrub. But I got a gut feeling on Brendan DeJong. I like the way that he was putting at the Zurich in that team event where he played okay. So why not take a flyer? Like, there's just so little. Again, to recap the below $7,000 plays, using like 25% Putnam, 5% of Lanto, and 5% of DeJong. Those are the only three guys that I'm using from below $7,000 because they're all pretty brutal.
Yeah. I'm using Lanto, Putnam, and Burgoon. Those are the only guys that I'm using.
All right. That'll do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. Live Q&A. We'll be back this time next week to talk about Colonial. And then I think the next week I'm on vacation, so I won't be here. Maybe, Reed, you can answer all the questions by yourself.
There we go. Just yes and no's. Next question.
Exactly. It'll just be highly engaging stuff. Anyway, Reed, tell everyone where they can find your work and follow you.
Yeah, so Reid T. Fowler, DraftKings, DK Live, DK Playbook, doing a lot of great things. Obviously, with football season coming up, but we're focusing on golf. So all the PGA course previews, everything in terms of all things PGA, go on DK Live, Reid T. Fowler on Twitter, everywhere.
I'm Pat Mayo. You can follow me on Twitter at the PME, same as Facebook, and same as Instagram. My betting cheat sheet is up on that Facebook page. That would be facebook.com/the PME. Subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience podcast. Rate, review, subscribe. Give a like to this show right now if you're still watching. I want to thank you all for tuning in. I have a lot of fun with this show. I know Reed does too. I hope you guys enjoy it and get some more information out of the way. My cheat sheet for DK and my course preview and all the key stats and why up on dkplaybook.com. 2 shows from earlier this week. You might want to go back and check those out if you haven't already, but I assume if you're watching a live chat featuring me, you probably watched the 2 shows that are better produced in the first 2 days. They're more concise about this, but I hope we got to all your questions. Good luck at the Byron Nelson. I'll see you next time.